to the bench, and UK High Commissioner Neil Wigan is on the bench. He's been in the country, what, about a couple of months now?
Just a couple of months.
Welcome to Kenya, first of all.
Thank you. But it's good to be back, actually.
Good to be back, because it's not your first time in Africa, right?
No, so I was ambassador in Somalia for 2 years, and my family lived in Nairobi, so actually some of my children's first memories of their time in Kenya. So they're delighted to be back. But I'm learning it's very different to come here as a visitor and to actually live here properly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more I've got to get to know, to learn about and understand. But I'm really enjoying getting out and about and seeing as much of Kenya as I can.
Sure.
But of course, been a bit busy with the royal visit to prepare for.
You have your hands full, or you hit the ground running?
Definitely hit the ground running.
Tell us, your first trip to Africa, what was it like?
My first trip to Africa was in 1977 and was to Kenya. So it was the first family holiday I can really remember, and going on safari in Kenya back in those days was an amazing experience. So I've actually brought the family back a long time, because it's always been such a special place for me. So now to get the chance to live and work here is great.
Deja vu?
Yeah.
In a good way?
In a good way.
Yeah. So, okay, so the royal visit. We were talking about earlier on, why Kenya, why now? And it's the royal couple's first official trip outside of Europe and to a Commonwealth country.
So we looked around the world at where would tell a really strong story, and we think Kenya tells a really strong story. So there's a lot of successes to celebrate in Kenya, and the themes that we're focusing on for the visit are youth, sustainability and innovation. And we think Kenya's got a great story to tell in all of those things, and to show how we work together with Kenya in those areas.
You know, Kenyans fondly remember the King's mother, Queen Elizabeth II. You know, she ascended to the throne when she was at Treetops in 1952, it was around that time. And that's how they fondly remember her. Will there be a return visit? Is it planned as part of the 4-day trip?
So we're not going to go to Treetops. So one of the difficult things about the trip was choosing where to go, because the choice was so good. But in the end, we decided to come to Nairobi and then Mombasa, because the King is very passionate about marine conservation, and there's some great work going on in Kenya in that, so he wants to see that for himself. And also we're going to see Kenyan Marines and the British Royal Marines training together, and that's a really good example of our security cooperation in action.
Yeah. What else is on the agenda? Because it's like a whistle-stop tour. I mean, 4 very hectic days.
It's really packed. So there's a really nice mixture. There's some very big ceremonial, symbolic events. So you were talking about Uhuru Gardens. So we think it's very powerful that the King, in the 60th anniversary of Kenya's independence, is going to the place where his father was for that independence ceremony. And he's going to be at that spot with President Ruto, and opening the new museum where Kenya's going to tell its own history, including its history with Britain. So we think there's that big sort of ceremonial bit which is important. But what he's really looking forward to is meeting normal Kenyans. And so he's going to be out and about, and he's going to go to beaches, he's going to go to schools, he's going to go to all sorts of places, really to see what's going on and to see what's happening here. And we're really excited about meeting people like fashion designers, creatives, to see that really exciting side of Kenya.
Absolutely. Look, the other thing is, you talked about our history. Kenya's history with Britain is checkered.
Yes.
There's a lot of unfinished business. And some critics or some analysts were saying, will Britain finally bite the bullet and finally apologize for what happened during Mau Mau?
So the first thing is the fact that we're talking so openly about history, and the King is going to address this very clearly on the visit. I think is a really positive thing, that our relationship is a stage where we think we can talk really openly as equals about these difficult issues, and the King will be engaging with that really directly. So as you know, in the past, we've been very clear about our regret about what happened in the Mau Mau period, about the abuses that Kenyans suffered, and we paid a significant amount of money to Mau Mau veterans who suffered, and paid for a memorial to celebrate that struggle.
So will there be an apology?
So we've expressed regret, and we think that's the right language. That's the language that we talked through with the Mau Mau veterans, and we said that in our own parliament. So that's really a big statement for our foreign minister to stand up in parliament and express that regret, was a really powerful thing. And again, the King will talk about this period openly. He'll visit these places, and we hope he'll be able to meet some of the communities and individuals who were affected by British rule, so he can understand it a bit better.
Sure. Britain has a huge military base up in Nanyuki, Batuk. visited it several times, and you know, very well organized, a great place. The thing is, there's a mixed history, mixed feelings between the locals and the British out there. Yes, it's very isolated. The British are very insular over there, and there have been a couple of incidents as well. Will there be some kind of mending of fences, if you will, because a couple of locals have been killed. Soldiers went back to the UK. The courts here demanded that they come back and be tried here. So there's a bit of bad blood between the locals and the forces up there.
So there's a lot really positive about the security relationship. We think it's really important. We think it's good for Kenya and it's good for Britain. So we train thousands of troops every year in Kenya, and this is a great and we are very grateful to Kenya for letting us do that. But we also train Kenyan troops, and our troops operate with each other. So we think this is good for the security of both countries. The communities benefit a lot economically from the British presence up there. They spend a lot of money, they create a lot of jobs, they build bridges, they try to do good works with the communities there. So we really try to be a force for good. There have been some difficult incidents, we absolutely understand that. And what we say about those incidents is that we cooperate really closely with the Kenyan authorities on some legal issues. And when it comes to issues of compensation, then we will engage with those communities and try to come up with something that's fair. Sometimes that process takes longer than we would like it to, but we're absolutely committed to doing it.
Yeah. Speaking of security, the biggest threat up north is Alshabab. Are the forces helping us, to help keep Alshabab at bay?
Absolutely. No, I visited Kenyan troops myself down in Kismayo, and I've seen what a fantastic job they do in really difficult conditions, and we really want to support them. So we offer them training in everything from how to deal with the improvised explosive devices which Al-Shabaab uses against them. Now we're training Marines so they can help keep Kenya's maritime space free. So we think that security cooperation keeps Kenyans safer, helps bring stability to the region, and of course it's good for all the British tourists who are here as well.
Coming back to the King and the royal visit, the King is very passionate about organic farming, which means he's against GMOs. Kenya just signed up all these licenses and OKs to undergo to grow GMO crops. How's that going to work? Is he going to speak against it? Is he going to say something?
No, he's not. But I think what he will talk about is Kenya also has a really good story to talk about on organics. So actually, we're going to take him to an organic city farm here in Nairobi, where he'll see some amazing techniques that Kenyans are using and how they teach people in the community to be able to grow their own food in a really healthy and sustainable way. So I think Kenya has a great story to tell on that.
The other passion he has is climate change. You talked about it. That's why one of the reasons he's going to Mombasa. But Kenyan leaders and African leaders have been talking about compensation by carbon emissions by, developed countries. What if that talk comes up? What if that issue comes up?
So he's definitely going to want to talk to President Ruto about this, of course, and of course after the Africa Climate Summit and in the run-up to COP28. So I'm sure that they will talk about that. It's a passion that they both share. Britain has committed about £11 billion to providing international climate finance. That's from the government, of course, rather than the King. But I think the King will also be interested in seeing how Kenya is helping lead African countries, but what it's doing here. So your story on renewable energy is fantastic. And the President's ambition to plant, I think it's 15 billion trees. Yeah. I think he's probably the only head of state who's more passionate about planting trees than King Charles.
We'll see if they might plant a tree together.
Yeah.
We have pictures of Kenyans are really excited. You know what was such a Michael Joseph used to call us what do you call us? A peculiar. Well, very peculiar. There's matatus. I don't know if we have pictures here. Matatus with the royals on. Have you seen that?
So they're ours. So we took some of the vans that we have at the High Commission and we wanted to do something a bit fun and something that would really feel Kenyan. So we got a local artist to decorate the embassy vans in a matatu style because they're such an icon and we think they look absolutely amazing.
It's so cool. Look at that. I'm telling you, it's great stuff. Great stuff. So what else? I mean, okay, they arrive on the 31st. Right? Late in the evening, and then boom, on the 1st.
So they start off by going to meet the president, of course. So there'll be a ceremony at State House, and the president and the king will spend some time together. They're going to go to Uhuru Gardens, which you talked about in your segment, and that's going to be a big ceremonial moment. But also we want the king to go and see Kenyan innovations, so technology. So we're going to take him to see some of the Kenyan startups who are doing amazing things in the climate change space, in financial empowerment space, and all these issues which he's really interested in. We're going to take him to see a farm, like I talked about. We'll take him to meet some Kenyan fashion designers and jewelry designers, so he gets that sense of kind of the Nairobi vibe. And then we'll be going to Mombasa to see marine conservation, to see the joint training of the troops, and again to spend some time with the president there.
Yeah. Is he going to be wearing shorts on the beach, or is that not on the agenda?
So he's a big fashion icon in Britain. So people really look at what he wears. Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen him in shorts.
That'll be a first. All right, so beyond the visit, Kenya-UK relations, are they solid right now, 60 years after independence? Are they still solid?
Yes, I think they're so I've talked to President Ruto about this, and we think they're the strongest probably that they've ever been. And we're really focusing on the future. I think that's the thing I'd really stress, is we see these areas which are important to all of us for the next 20, 50 years, like climate change, like regional security, like doing investment in a green and sustainable way. We think there's huge potential for us to work together in Kenya in those places. And that's what Kenyans talk to me about. So they're interested in can they work in the UK? Can they study in the UK? Can they get a job with a British company? And we want to do as much of that as we possibly can. Yeah,
a lot of people question, or they're not sure whether the king, as head of government, is it head of government?
So he's the head of state, not the head of government.
Head of government is the prime minister.
Exactly.
Right? So what's the difference? I mean, how's the protocol going to deal with this? Like, are there any deals going to be signed, any MOUs?
No, so that's really the difference. So if it was the Prime Minister coming, then we'd be looking at doing commercial deals or big policy announcements, things like that. For the King is more symbolic, so he symbolises Britain and the British people. So he will be focused a lot on people-to-people connections. So he just hosted a big reception at Buckingham Palace for the Kenyan diaspora in Britain, because they're such a kind of exciting diaspora and they're really committed to both countries. But I think it's more that sort of big symbolic issues which are important. And then the things which the King is personally very passionate about, like youth, and of course the average Kenyan is 19 years old, and the King for decades, through the Prince's Trust, which he set up, has been working around youth employment and issues like that. So we'll see some things that they're doing here, and sustainability is his really big passion. So what you're doing around replanting, around conservation, biodiversity, we think you have a great story to tell.
Yeah. Speaking of the meeting with Kenyans at Buckingham Palace, we have pictures of that, actually. So they invited Kenyans in the diaspora in the UK, and what is that, like a prelude to this state visit?
Exactly. So I think before the King comes out, he thought it'd be a chance to meet some Kenyans, to get a sense of the Kenyan vibe, but also to say thank you to them for everything that they do in the UK. So we have Kenyans working in the health sector, in academia, in the arts, culture, and they play a huge contribution in the UK, and we really want to celebrate that.
So during this trip, is there going to be time for some nyama choma at some point, or?
So the menu for the state banquet is up to the government of Kenya, but they might put nyama choma on the menu. You never know.
That'll be good. That'll be different. Bottom line, you have the first assignment. I mean, you have the biggest assignment in this region. You know, is it going to be a successful trip? I mean, is everything in place?
It better be. No, I think it's going to be a hugely successful trip, and we've been talking with the Palace about how we can make sure this is something that people really remember in 10 years' time, that Kenyans look back and think that this was a really big moment in the relationship, and this shows how after 60 years the relationship is still incredibly close and strong, and that's the message that we want to send, that this has been a strong relationship for 60 years, but the next 60 years will be just as strong.
Absolutely. Look, a lot of Kenyans online have been telling us, I told you before the break last few minutes, that visa problems
Yes.
Huge, huge stressful problems. A lot of rejections.
Yes. Even in my 2 months here, I've heard this from a lot of Kenyans.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a complicated process, but like all countries, immigration is a really important issue, and we really want to control our borders, and we do that through the visa process. But we do absolutely welcome those Kenyans who have the right to come to the UK. As I said, the diaspora plays a really important role, and we really want to encourage that.
And the UK has been promoting a lot of professionals to move to the UK, like nurses and other...
So nurses are a good example. We have a shortage in our National Health Service. We need more nurses. Here in Kenya, you've got a lot of very highly qualified, highly skilled people, but they don't have jobs. So we think there's a really good fit for those unemployed nurses to go to the UK for a few years, get some skills, get some experience, which they can bring back home. And we think this is good for both sides.
Kenyans who don't remember that the royalty has been in Kenya for the last 60 years, a part of Kenya. What do you tell them? Because like you said, most of this generation, most of the population is what, 19 and under. They have no clue. Yeah. What do you tell them?
So I think that's what the trip will do. That will sort of reintroduce the royal family in a different way to a new generation of Kenyans. And I think it'll be a new image. So the fact that when the king comes here, what he's talking about is Kenyan technology, Kenyan creativity, Kenyan conservation, we think sends a really powerful message about how we see Kenya today and the potential for the young people to get involved in in those areas as part of the relationship in the future.
A couple of months you've been in Kenya. Have you learned any Swahili?
Almost none. I'm ashamed to say. It was my absolute plan to focus on it, but I'm saying that once the royal visit is over, then I have to buckle down, get myself a good teacher and work on it.
So next time you come on the bench, you'll be speaking Swahili?
I'll be speaking more Swahili than I am now. That's a promise.
Balozi, karibu sana.
Asante sana.
You see, you understand that. You're lying to me. You understand. Good to see you. Good luck in the next week or so. And we'll keep talking.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. That's our very own British High Commissioner to Kenya, Neil Wigan, talking about the royal visit of the King and Queen of the UK, starting on October the 31st till November the 3rd. It's going to be epic. Keep tweeting at @Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag JKLIVE. JKLIVE takes a break. We'll be back in the meantime. Coming up.